Hello and welcome to my channel, Becoming Bev. My video today, I received a comment and I'm just going to read you the comment. So the comment that I got on my advice from the van video, you can afford to have this philosophy because you have money. Most people don't have the amount of money that you have. Most people are economically forced into their particular lifestyle, which is mostly lower middle class. You appear to have a pretty soft life. Most people don't. So for some reason, this comment, it kind of got to me a little bit and it made me think, do I have a soft life? And the answer is yes. Yes, I have a soft life and I'm very proud of my soft life, and it hasn't always been that way. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you a bit of my journey into creating the soft life that I currently have. And this comment also made me wonder, the people out there, and I'd love to hear a comment from you van lifers. If you're doing van life, are you doing it by choice because you want the freedom and the adventure, or are you doing it because you're forced into it because of your economic situation? So please leave me a comment, and if you're doing van life, let me know kind of the reason that you're doing it. If you've been watching my channel, most of you know that van life is a choice for me. I don't have to do this. It's a choice that I treasure. I treasure the freedom and the flexibility and the adventure. And I've made my van very comfortable. What I say is any day that I wake up in the van is a good day because I know I'm on an adventure. So how did I get here? How did I get this soft life? I grew up in Southeast Missouri, in Fredericktown, Missouri, which is the town that my campground is in, Fred Rock. The population in Fredericktown is 3,985. I lived there when I was a child, and I never remember the population going above 4,000. There are 10 children in my mom's family, and there were 5 children in my dad's family. So I have lots of relatives, lots of cousins, and I grew up having lots of aunts and uncles around. Now, out of 10 children in my mom's family, my mother was the only one to actually graduate from high school. And my dad, to this day, has a difficult time reading and writing. That's something that he never really learned. He learned a little bit when my little sister, who's 14 years younger than me, when she went to kindergarten and first grade, he kind of studied a little bit with her. So he can, kind of read now at that level. We grew up on and off of welfare and food stamps my entire childhood. When I look back now, I think that growing up poor was a gift to me. I learned from my dad how to do a lot with very little resources. Like I can remember him saying one day, I need a doghouse. And then later I see him out there with a chainsaw cutting up some old scrap wood. And a few hours later, he'd built himself a doghouse. My dad was an auto mechanic. And to this day, in my hometown, when you mention my dad, even though he's been retired for years, when you mention my dad, almost everyone has a story about how he helped them out and how he only charged them $10, for fixing this or that. Like my dad had a big fart. Not a big fart. Sometimes he has that. My dad had a big heart for helping people out. So I learned pretty early on if I wanted to have anything, I was going to have to work hard for it. I got my first job working at the A&M restaurant in Fredericktown as a car hop. I think I was 13 years old. Kind of laugh at the A&M. It's still in business today in Fredericktown. It's a great little breakfast place, and up until about 6 months ago, you could still smoke inside there. Not that I'm a smoker, but I found that interesting. I think the A&M restaurant used to be an A&W restaurant who kind of went downhill and lost its A&W franchise status, so they just turned the W upside down and it became the A&M restaurant. So that was my first job and my first taste of if I wanted anything, I was going to have my own money. I was going to need to make my own money. I learned to have fun along the way, even when things appear hard. Like, you have to make your own fun. And I also learned how important generosity is and how important family is. Like mother, we would leave the house and she wouldn't lock the doors in case someone needed something while she wasn't there. They could just go in and get it. My parents were always willing to share. They were always willing to help other people out, even when they didn't have much. And that's one of the things that I love about Fredericktown, is it's still that small town mentality where people help each other out. Misty and I have witnessed this several times doing our campground project, where friends and relatives and acquaintances, pitch in to help us out when we need it. What a blessing that is. So that's a bit about my childhood. I went to college for one semester. I had won a little art scholarship, and I got pregnant my first semester in college. And for years, that first semester was also my last semester in college. I dropped out and went to work full time. I had my daughter when I was 18 years old, and I was a single mom. So my mother did probably what her mother did. She took me down to the welfare office and signed me up for food stamps. For some reason, that was a devastating experience for me. I never went back. I never signed up again. And I vowed that I don't need anyone. I can do this on my own. And I know that's not true. I do need people, and I've had lots of help along the way, and I'm so thankful for that help. But that day was a life changer for me. So my friend Yvonne moved to Dallas, and I took a little driving vacation, and I went to see her. And I kind of fell in love with it, and I didn't return. So I just stayed in Texas, and Yvonne and I were roommates for a while. We lived next door for a while. Yvonne and I have known each other since 7th grade, and to this day, we're still the best of friends. In fact, Yvonne and I had lost touch with each other for a few years, and when we got back in touch with each other, we both had a baby, and I found out that my daughter was born on her son's first birthday. Like, how crazy is that? So I'd say from there, my job history really started. I went to work as a security guard, and not the kind that carries a gun or anything like that, but the kind that just checks traffic in and out, just like logs traffic in and out. And my hours at that time were 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I would drive to work every morning. Well, it just so happens there was a neighbor who got up early, and he'd be outside doing yard work or washing his cars or whatever. And, he'd wave and I'd wave back. Well, after about a year or so of doing this, he waved me over one day and he says, "I noticed that you're never late for work." He said, "I own a little x-ray company, and we're looking for someone to work in the dark room. And if that interests you, I would love to hire you and train you." And he did. And it was quite a bit of an increase in pay for me from my probably minimum wage security guard job. So Mr. Joe trained me to do industrial x-ray processing. My job was to develop the x-ray film, and eventually I learned how to read the x-ray film. So how to mark the films if there was an air pocket that was too big, or if there was a crack in the weld, and we would send it back and the welders would have to cut out that section and redo it, and it would have to be re-x-rayed. So eventually I learned how to do the x-raying, and I got a job as an x-ray technician at a company called Murdoch Engineering, who were a division of Lockheed. And my job was to x-ray these submarine parts that had rubber flanges on them, just to make sure the rubber was thick enough. And then we also did some aircraft wings, where we x-rayed the honeycomb core that was inside the aircraft wings to make sure that nothing had gotten smashed during the manufacturing process. Now, when I was working at Murdoch, I worked 2 jobs. I also had a weekend job working at a kids club at my apartment complex. So that was a job that my daughter could go to with me. So basically I'm working 7 days a week. I remember like a grade school assignment that my daughter had. She was in the 4th grade, and the assignment was to draw a picture of your family. So she had a picture of me and her, and we either had a cat or a dog at the time. And then there was a box where she was supposed to draw a picture of her favorite vacation. And she had a big question mark in that box because we had never been on a vacation. So I get when you're working from paycheck to paycheck, vacations and travel aren't really an option. I didn't really know it at the time, but I feel like every job that I had back then, especially from this point forward, kind of prepared me to be a business owner and to own my day spa, and now the campground. From Murdoch Engineering, I met someone and I got married. That marriage lasted 5 years. But I moved to Sherman, Texas, and my next job was for a Budweiser distributorship there. And the lady hired me because she felt like my attention to detail and my knowledge of quality control would be a good fit for working in the office and doing accounting and payroll. So I learned to do accounting, I learned to do payroll, I learned about marketing, I learned about signage and the importance of shelf placement, things like that. After 5 years, I got divorced, I moved back to Dallas, I got a job being the branch manager's executive secretary for the Budweiser distributorship in Dallas. Now at that time, even working 2 jobs, I was still struggling. It seemed like every month I came up short on my rent. And I think it was also about that time that I learned to believe in miracles. There were 3 or 4 months in a row where it was a couple of days before rent was due and I'm $50 short. And one of the times my apartment complex had a little picnic lunch get together and they had some prizes. So one of the things I won was $50 off my rent. And the next month, someone was moving away who had also won that, and they gave me their $50 off their rent. So I think I began to trust that in my life, things were gonna always work out, even though I couldn't always see how. It's like I laugh and I say, I run through my life full speed ahead, and I expected my bridges to be there when I need them, and they are. So this running full speed ahead, it has its advantages and disadvantages. I've never been a person who had to have all my ducks in a row in order to do something. So in that sense, it's helpful, but sometimes running full speed ahead, I, crash into a brick wall. And I wish I would have taken a little more time to research and study instead of just running full speed ahead. So there's a cost and payoff. Now, it was also about this time that I decided to go to massage school. This guy that I was dating bought me a massage as a gift, and I just kind of fell in love with it, and I thought I could do that. So I went to school part-time. It took me probably 6 months or so to get my massage license. So then I started dabbling in doing out calls and doing massages part-time. I didn't know at that time, but getting my massage license would be a game changer for me. I left Dallas and moved to Houston following a love interest. I got a job working commission in a hair salon. Eventually, I rented a room from another hair salon, and then I did something that changed my life. I took a class called Marketing Massage, and I'd say it was the first time I was introduced to the possibility of passive income through gift certificate sales. So I did a little marketing thing, and I marketed my gift certificates, right ahead of Christmas. Ended up making, I don't know, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 that year in Christmas gift certificate sales. And it was enough money that I could lease a space a few doors down from the hair salon I was working at. And I began my business. I opened up my day spa. Of course, I was the only employee doing massage there. But as I got busier, I hired more people. The first employee that I hired, her name is Mary Yo. She worked there for over 10 years, and she and I are still friends to this day. She has one of the biggest hearts of anyone I know. So at that point, I began taking every class that I could possibly find that I thought might help me in my business. So I took accounting classes, I took public speaking classes, I took marketing classes, I took any class that I thought would help me, and I read any book that I thought might help me. Now, I'd say at this time, I still had a very strong work hard mentality. I grew up thinking you have to work hard. If you want to get ahead, you have to work hard. And I did. When I first opened my day spa, I did everything. I carried a full massage load, I ran the business, I did all the cleaning. Later on, when we changed locations, I mowed the grass, I handmade a lot of the products that we sold. I used to make these aromatherapy hot packs. I would get my sewing machine out at my desk in between appointments, and I would go to the feed store and get flaxseed, and I would go over to Whole Foods and get chamomile and lavender, and I handmade these aromatherapy pillows. I used them during the massages and also sold them as a retail product. So my day spa at this time was in a little old strip shopping center. I think my rent was $700 a month, and I knew that I could afford that with just my massage commissions. After 7 years of being in that old shopping center, I found the property where my day spa currently sits, and through a series of events, something bad that turned into something good, I ended up having almost the exact amount of money that I needed for a down payment to buy the property that my day spa hired hands currently sits on. Now, I still wasn't out of the woods financially, though. I paid myself the same thing that I was paying my massage therapist at that time. But there were times during the learning process of running a business where I had 6 of my own paychecks in my desk because I couldn't afford to cash them. I was doing everything that I could. And then another shift for me came along when one of my customers said, "Beverly, why do you work so hard? Why don't you work smart?" And I was like, I didn't know that was an option. It had never occurred to me that I didn't have to work hard. I've done some work over the years, analyzing my childhood beliefs around money. And you have to work hard was one of them. Another childhood belief that I had was there's barely enough. So if you don't do some work on yourself as an adult, transforming those childhood beliefs, you recreate them in your adult life. So for instance, if your childhood belief is there's barely enough, I don't care how much money you're making, you're going to create it being barely enough. If you're making $100,000 a year, you're going to buy a fancy car, you're going to buy a house, you're going to do everything to create that 100,000 being barely enough unless you transform that conversation. Obviously, I love my parents, and my parents taught me what they could, but they can't teach you what they don't know. I read early on that it's important to read one financial book a year. And I do that to this day to help me learn things that my parents couldn't teach me. I learned about the pitfalls of credit card debt. At one point, I had about $20,000 in credit card debt. I was trying to help my daughter get through cosmetology school, and I gave her a credit card for emergencies. And I guess her idea of emergencies and my idea of emergencies were a little bit different. One time I called her and I said, "Misty, really? Pizza? Is that an emergency?" And she said, "Mom, it was an emergency. We went to pay and didn't have enough money." So I guess it was an emergency. But anyway, I racked up about 20 grand in credit card debt. And it felt debilitating. It felt crippling to me. And I've learned now that it is debilitating and it is crippling to carry credit card debt, especially if you're only making minimum payments. Once I got out of that credit card debt, I vowed to never do that again. And I'm very proud to say that I haven't. It's I pay my credit cards off every month. I make the credit cards work for me instead of me working for them. I do things like I have a Southwest credit card that I earn travel points on. So one of the reasons I can fly in the US the way that I do is I use my credit card points for that. And that only works if you don't carry debt. It's not smart to do that if you carry a balance on your credit card. One of the things that I learned from my parents is to live below my means. The houses that I have, the house at Fred Rock is an income producing property. My house in Texas, the day spa uses it for office space and storage. It's also an income producing property. I had an item on my 100 Desires bucket list to achieve zero debt, which I did. I paid off the mortgages that I had. I paid off my vehicle loan. And even now, it's the van that I drive, I paid $5,500 for it. So everything I've done with my van, I've paid for as I went along, and I didn't have to get into debt for it. Now, I no longer have zero debt because I bought the property that Fred Rock is on, but I bought that as a business opportunity for myself and to eventually create passive income for my daughter so that she can have the freedom that I have. And I'm still learning about money. Currently, I'm taking a class called Journey to Wealth, and it's been fascinating. It's we did a personal financial statement, and the idea is what you can measure, you can improve upon. So by doing your personal financial statement every 6 months, you can see, am I going in the right direction or am I going in the wrong direction? And another thing this class has done is made me analyze my spending habits and how much of spending is an emotional thing. And I'd already been looking at stuff, all the stuff doesn't mean anything to me anymore. Looking in my closet at all the clothes and shoes and asking myself, what is the point of this? One of the things that I love about van life is I actually love that all of my clothes fit in 2 drawers. And if I get tired of something, I'll donate it to Salvation Army or Goodwill, and I'll go in there and shop and find a replacement. Like this top is a replacement. I think I paid $4 for it. I still travel and shop. I used to say frugally, but I changed that recently to say I travel and I shop smart. I can have this lifestyle because I have very few bills, which gives me tons of freedom and tons of flexibility. So do I have a soft life? I guess I do. And I gotta say, I'm proud of my soft life. I'm proud of the decisions that I've made in the past. I'm proud of the decisions that I'm currently making. And I'm thankful every day for the blessed life that I live. And I'm also thankful for all of you. I'm thankful for people who watch my videos. And especially I'm thankful for the channel subscribers and my Patreons. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. You keep watching and I'll keep posting content.